This is the exact moment a father shot the man who kidnapped his son live on television. On Friday, March 16, 1984, a karate teacher named Jeff Doucet was about to face trial. He had taken an 11-year-old boy from his class. He took the child nearly 2,000 miles away, from Louisiana to a motel in California. There, he hurt him repeatedly for a whole month. Eventually, police found Doucet and arrested him. During the questioning, they found out he had been hurting many other children for years. After he confessed, officers prepared to fly him back to Louisiana for court. And that is where everything changed. As police walked Doucet through the airport, news cameras were everywhere, showing every second live on TV. Standing in the crowd was the boy's father, Gary Plochet. He wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, waiting silently for the exact moment Doucet walked by. And when he did, Gary stepped forward, pulled out a weapon, and fired at Doucet right in the head. The whole country saw it happen live. Doucet was rushed to the hospital, but he died the next day. Gary was arrested immediately for murder. But the judge later decided that Gary was not a danger to anyone else, so he did not serve any prison time. To this day, this remains one of the most shocking moments ever seen on American TV. What do you think about his story? Write your opinion in the comments and follow me, or we'll never see each other again.
She took her son's eyes out because he wouldn't close them during a prayer. In May of 2012 in Mexico, Maria del Carmen Rios Garcia had a sign that the world was going to end. So she got her family together to fast and recite a prayer. Maria told her 5-year-old son to close his eyes during the prayer, but he refused. This prayer was like no other. They were chanting and dancing in a circle, similar to a ritual, and it was obvious that Fernando was just scared. Maria told Fernando to close his eyes multiple times, but since he refused, she got fed up, went to the kitchen to grab a spoon, and dug out his eyeballs. She decided to do this so that she could cleanse them. Inside of the home, there was a teenage boy locked in one of the rooms, and as soon as he heard Fernando's screams, he was able to break free and ran outside for help. Officers ended up breaking into the home, and they were met with a horrific scene. Fernando was immediately rushed to the hospital, and luckily he survived. Although Fernando can no longer see, he was given glass eyes and is now in care. A neighbor revealed that he thought the family was just deeply religious and didn't know that they were Satanists. Maria and her family members who were all involved were arrested and sentenced to 30 years in prison.
This is probably the worst babysitter of all time. This teenage girl was a babysitter, and while she was babysitting, she killed 6 people, including 5 babies. Christine here was born Christine Slaughter. Yeah, her last name was literally Slaughter. She was born in Florida. This entire case takes place in Florida. When Christine's mother gave birth to her, she was only 16 years old, and her father was 65 years old. And even crazier, Christine was their second daughter, meaning that this man in his 60s first got this girl pregnant when she was like 13, 14 years old. It's just foul. Christine's father was very violent. Her mother was very neglectful. Her mother would just get up and leave for months at a time, and sometimes she would even come back pregnant. It just overall was not a good home life. And then when Christine was 4 years old, her and her older sister were put up for adoption, and they were adopted by the Falling family, making Christine Falling. And this was arguably an even worse situation. The Falling father was very abusive, like physically, emotionally, and he even began to SA Christine and her older sister. Girls would run away, they would try to report the abuse, but nothing would ever happen. So at some point, Christine and her older sister were put in a group foster home, and Christine said that this was actually the happiest time in her entire life, but the adults that knew her and were taking care of her said that that was not the case. Christine was a very troubled young girl, and she was showing some very disturbing behaviors and signs. She was stealing, she was lying, she was violent towards the other children, and I'm about to talk about animals really quick. As a child, Christine began killing animals. Like, she would find stray cats in the neighborhood and then she would drop them from the top of very high buildings to test their 9 lives. Christine and her sister were only at the foster home for about a year before being sent back to their adoptive parents, the Fallings. During my research, I saw a lot of sources that said that Christine was developmentally stunted. Many sources actually said that Christine mentally was about 12 years old or younger, and she was bullied a lot. When Christine was 14 years old, she got married, but the marriage only lasted a few weeks before they got a divorce because apparently he was very abusive, and then one time she bashed him over the head, and that's why he divorced her. This girl really just had no childhood. By the time that Christine was 17 years old, she was well known in the community for being the neighborhood babysitter. She was very well trusted, and she babysat for a lot of families. And then one day in February of 1980, Christine was babysitting the 2-year-old Cassidy Johnson. While Christine was babysitting Cassidy, she took the baby to the hospital, claiming that she fell out of the crib. Cassidy died in the hospital a few days later. Her cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to her skull, injuries not consistent with falling out of your crib, but her death was not investigated. A few weeks later, Christine was babysitting the 4-year-old Jeffrey Davis when she called 911 because he suddenly stopped breathing. His cause of death was listed as natural causes because there was some flu or virus going around at the time. A few days later, the aunt and uncle of 4-year-old Jeffrey were going to his funeral when they hired Christine to babysit their 2-year-old son, Joseph Spring, which was Jeffrey's cousin. According to Christine, while she was babysitting the 2-year-old Joseph, she put him down for a nap, and during his nap, he suddenly stopped breathing. He also tragically passed away, and it was determined that he also died from this virus going around that also took his cousin. Another month goes by, and Christine is babysitting the 3-year-old Kyle Summerlin. He also gets sick while Christine is babysitting him. He is rushed to the hospital, but he luckily survived. Another year goes by. Christine is babysitting a 3-year-old boy named Charles and a 14-month-old baby boy named Jeffrey. They both also got sick, but they also both survived. It's only been about 1 year in this very small town, and 6 babies have either died or gotten seriously sick while all being babysat by the same teenage girl, and no one is suspicious at all. Christine moves to a new town, and she takes a job as a nursing assistant for the elderly. First day on the job, she was assigned to 77-year-old William Swindle, and that same day, William was found dead on his kitchen floor. His cause of death was determined to be a heart attack, without an autopsy or an investigation being done. Later that same month, Christina was out spending some time with her half-sister. They're running errands together when Christine's sister asks if Christine will stay in the car with her baby while she just runs into the grocery store for a few minutes. Christine was alone in that car with her 8-month-old niece, Jessica Daniels, for only a few minutes. By the time her sister came back to the car, her baby, Jessica, was dead. Once again, assumptions were made about Jessica's death, that it was natural causes without an autopsy, without an investigation. A year later, Christine is babysitting again. She's babysitting the 10-week-old little baby boy named Travis Coleman. While she's babysitting him, he gets very sick. He almost stops breathing. He's rushed to the hospital, but he luckily survived. A week later, he is discharged from the hospital, and shortly later, his parents hire Christine to babysit him again, but this time he did not survive. This time an autopsy was done, and there were signs that Travis had been suffocated, but still, no one is suspicious of Christine. And around this time, Christine is definitely getting a reputation for being a babysitter of death, because all these babies are dying while she's taking care of them, but not in a suspicious way. People felt bad for Christine that all these babies were dying in front of her. A local newspaper actually did an article on Christine and the 5 babies that died in her care. And allegedly, it was that article that finally got the police to actually go and question Christine. And pretty much right away, Christine confessed to killing 3 of the 5 babies, and she said that she suffocated them because she was hearing voices tell her, "Kill the baby." Christine pled guilty to killing Cassidy, which was her first victim, her niece Jessica, and Travis, her last victim. And afterwards, she also confessed to killing the cousins, Jeffrey and Joseph, as well as 77-year-old William Swindle. She also confessed to the attempted murder of those 3 more babies, which means that she killed 6 people, 5 of which were babies, and she attempted to kill 3 more. And people were shocked in the community. Remember, people saw Christine as harmless, very, very innocent. She was, she had the mind of a child. That's what people said about Christine. So people were absolutely shocked that she could kill 6 people, and very innocent people, the elderly, the babies. So when they asked Christine why, Christine said, quote, "I don't know why I done what I done. The way I done it, I seen it done on TV shows. I had my own way though, simple and easy. No one could hear them scream." terrifying. Later, Christine said that she killed for no reason other than she just wanted to. She was angry and she wanted to take her anger out on these babies and the elderly because they were weaker than her. Christine Fallon was given 3 life sentences. She's still in prison to this day. She was up for parole twice and she was denied both times in 2017 and in 2024. This case is just so sad and so tragic on so many levels. Christine herself was a victim. She was a victim over and over again. Her entire childhood, she was abused and victimized. But then Christine became the abuser. Christine became the killer. I am so interested to hear your thoughts on this case. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. I feel like I don't even know where the comment section is going to go on this one. While you're in the comments, please remember to always be respectful because 6 innocent people lost their lives in this case. That's not funny. That's not a joke. So as always, please be respectful in the comment section. And while you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to everyone that suggested that we cover today's case. And I will see you guys all next time in my next video. Please be a good person to your fellow person.
So Britney Spears owned this house, believed it was haunted, and sold it with everything still inside to Brittany Murphy, who would then go on to die inside of the house. Maybe this is all just coincidence, but it's still incredibly eerie when you hear the full story. So this is the mansion that Britney Spears moved into in 2001, and according to Britney's former makeup artist, during the time that she was living there, she had some type of spiritual transformation and invited someone over who claimed to be a spiritual healer. But after this supposed spiritual healer left, something didn't feel right to her. Britney told her former makeup artist that she thought the spiritual healer may have opened some type of portal, and she claimed that there were evil spirits inside of the house trying to harm her by doing things like pushing her down the stairs. The entire situation scared Britney so badly that she left the home immediately and never returned. She then sold the house along with everything inside of it to Brittany Murphy, who would then go on to die in that house under very suspicious circumstances. Her husband Simon would also die 5 months after her in the same room. Now, after Britney's death, Simon gave an interview stating that his wife tried to avoid the house at all costs. He said that he felt that maybe the property was unlucky, and before her death, he had planned to move his wife and his mother to New York City. Then, after Simon's death, his mother was quoted saying, "All I know is that before Simon's death, he was having hallucinations that things were crawling out of his skin." Now, a lot of people believe that this can all be attributed to toxic mold poisoning. Maybe the home was filled with black mold, which, when exposed to for a prolonged period of time, can cause hallucinations, paranoia, insomnia. It can also cause breathing problems. And the ultimate cause of Britney and Simon's death was listed as community-acquired pneumonia. But the coroner's office said that toxic mold wasn't the case. They instead said that Britney's death was due to an iron deficiency and intoxication from prescription medications, which likely weakened her immune system and then led to a fatal bacterial infection. Simon's cause of death was nearly identical. So if this was the case, was Britney Spears right? Was there something unexplainable inside of that house?
Imagine living in your house for 9 years without realizing that there is a 55-gallon barrel in the crawl space, which is holding a perfectly preserved, mummified body. Not only that, but the body had been buried underneath that same house for 30 years without anyone ever knowing. And it was tied back to a really prominent and wealthy businessman in another state. This is the disturbing case of Raina Murakeen, a pregnant woman whose murder remained unsolved for 30 years until this barrel was found. So in September of 1999, Ronald Cohen sold his house at 67 Forest Drive in Jericho, New York. He had lived in it for 9 years and he sold it for $455,000. As he was getting ready to vacate the property, he went to the crawl space of his home beneath the bottom floor to triple check that nothing was left behind. There he found a 55-gallon barrel that sat untouched for the entire 9 years that he lived inside this home. Not even knowing it was there that entire time, he became curious as to what was inside. And when he finally pried the lid off, he discovered a disturbing scene. Upon opening, the barrel smelled incredibly bad and it was stuffed with plastic pellets, but sticking out of the pellets was a human hand. Needless to say, Ronald quickly called the police, who found that there was an entire mummified body inside this barrel. The body was completely intact because it was airtight, but that's not all they found. Investigators found that the body belonged to a pregnant Hispanic woman who was in her late 20s at the time of death. She was around 5 feet tall and had unusual dental work done that was not from the United States. The fetus was a boy who was about 17 inches long, meaning this was a near full-term pregnancy when this woman died. The autopsy determined that the woman died from blunt force trauma to the head. Along with the woman's body in the barrel, police also found polystyrene pellets, 2 rings, which one of them was inscribed with the initials MHR, a locket also inscribed with the phrase, quote, "To Patrice, love Uncle Phil," end quote. Some green dye, a plastic artificial plant stem, which is an important detail to remember for later, a handwritten note likely from this woman that said, quote, "Don't be mad, I told the truth," end quote, and an old and decaying address book. This was a long shot because of how old and decayed the book was, but police used infrared light to examine each page, and shockingly, some of the writing was still legible. One thing that was clear as day was a social security number that belonged to a 27-year-old woman named Reina Marroquin. Reina came to the US from El Salvador in 1966. She then went to fashion school, worked as a nanny, and then ultimately got a job at the Melrose Plastics factory. Police then officially confirmed that the body found in the barrel did in fact belong to Reina, and she died in 1969. And since she was last known to work at Melrose Plastics factory, investigators thought this would be a good place to start. After examining the barrel, there were specific markings on it that showed that it was last shipped to, you guessed it, Melrose Plastics. This was a Manhattan-based artificial flower company that was partly owned by a man named Howard B. Elkins. After digging into who Howard was, investigators learned that he actually previously owned the Jericho house where Reina's remains were found. Neighbors surrounding the home all vaguely remembered who Howard was and the flower company that he owned, but nothing more than that. But interestingly enough, after Reina's body was found, someone anonymously called the police and told them that Howard had previously had an affair with a Hispanic woman who used to work at his factory. So again, it seemed like the investigators were on the right track in solving this mystery. Howard sold Melrose Plastics in 1972 and had long since moved with his wife and 3 children to Florida. Howard lived a very social life. He was a really wealthy and prominent businessman, but little did anyone know, he was secretly living a double life. Police found a phone number in Reina's address book and decided to give it a call. It belonged to one of Reina's old friends named Kathy, and literally after the first ring, she picked up, which is extremely lucky because that meant Kathy had the same phone number for 30 plus years. What Kathy told police though is shocking. She said that all those years ago in 1969, Reina had been having an affair with her boss, Howard. She ended up getting pregnant with his child and told Kathy this. Reina was so excited and told her that Howard was married with 3 kids already, but he assured her that he was going to leave his wife to be with her. Reina was worried though that he wouldn't keep his promise, so not long before she disappeared in 1969, she called Howard's wife and told her that she was pregnant. I guess Howard became enraged with her and threatened to kill her, and Reina became scared of him. Not long after this, Reina disappeared. The only person that really knew Reina in the US was Kathy, and after a little while of not hearing from her, Kathy went to Reina's apartment in New Jersey to check on her. But not only was Reina nowhere to be found, but the entire apartment was completely empty. Someone had cleared it out. After this, no one ever heard from Reina ever again, and sadly, police never really investigated her disappearance. What's super weird to me is that before she disappeared, Reina went to Melrose Plastics with a toddler, who I guess happened to be hers. No one knows who the dad was or what happened to the little boy after this, but all the employees at the factory joked around and said that the boy's father was Howard. So after learning all of this information, police tracked Howard down in this luxury retirement community in Florida. Howard did not expect to see the police on the other side of his door and was literally shocked. Now 30 years later, Howard was pretty uncooperative. When told about Reina, he denied knowing anything about a barrel, but he did admit to having an affair. He just didn't remember what the woman looked like or what her name was. He refused to give a DNA sample to compare it to the fetus that was found inside Reina, but police pretty much told him that he did not have a choice, that they would be back later with a warrant and would get that blood sample one way or another. The very next day, which was September 10th, 1999, Howard went to Walmart, bought a shotgun, and then got inside of his neighbor's car that was parked in their garage and fatally shot himself, ending his own life. After he was found, DNA testing did confirm that he was the father of Raina's baby. Since we obviously never got any real answers from Howard before he killed himself, police assumed that he either went to Raina's apartment in 1969 or lured her to the factory and killed her by bludgeoning her over the head. It's suspected that he then took her body back to his home in Jericho and put her in the 55-gallon barrel, planning to dump it into the ocean off his boat. So he filled the barrel up with dye and plastic pellets to ensure that it would be heavy enough to sink, but it weighed about 350 pounds, so he really didn't think ahead. So now with it being too heavy to move, he just left the barrel in the crawl space of his home, where it sat untouched for 30 years. So finally, after 30 years, the disappearance and murder of Raina Murakin was officially put to rest. A reporter actually went to El Salvador after finding Raina's mom. She was now 95 years old, and when he told her the news of her daughter passing, she was devastated. She nearly collapsed and said that Raina had stopped writing home in 1969 without any explanation, and she always wondered what happened to her little girl. She said that deep down, she always knew that this was the fate that Raina likely suffered, because she would always have recurring nightmares of her being trapped in a barrel. And if you just take a second to think about that, that's so incredibly sad. And it just proves how much of a strong connection a parent has with their child. Raina's mom died not long after learning what happened to her. This is such a sad and frustrating case because Howard got to live out the rest of his life while Raina didn't. She was buried underneath a home while other families got to make so many memories right above her. It's also crazy that the house had been sold 3 separate times before anyone found the barrel and decided to open it up. And one big question I have is, did Howard's wife know that he killed Raina? I mean, all of his neighbors and his new life in Florida were all shocked. They said that he was super social, well-liked, and well-known, and that he was a lovely man, that there's no way that he would do such a thing, but he did, and his wife at least knew about part of it. She knew that he had an affair and that Raina was pregnant, so it makes me question if she knew about her disappearance or murder too. Maybe Howard told her that it was handled because he was a big liar and manipulator, or maybe she just didn't ask. Some think that since they were so wealthy and known to the community that it's possible she did know, but she just decided to look the other way so as not to ruin their image. Either way, the story is devastating. I just hope that Raina and her baby are together somewhere in a place far better than how she ever got treated here on Earth. And also, if you ever move into a house and find an old 55-gallon barrel, don't wait 9 years to open it. You never know what or who could be inside waiting to be found.
A girl was held captive for 26 years and nobody even noticed she was gone. This is an awful, awful story and a very recent one. Hi, I'm Meg. I talk about true crime. Let's get into this case. This case is literally breaking the internet right now, probably because of how horrific it is. It involves a woman called Amanda Wixon. She goes by Mandy. Mandy Wixon. She is unfortunately a mother of 10, and she turned her house in Gloucestershire into a literal house of horrors. Horrors. Yeah. And it all started with what we'll call a sleepover that never ended. So though this is a very recently discovered case, it goes back to 1995. So back in 1995, this girl, who remains anonymous, went to stay at the Wixons' house. It was supposed to be a temporary stay with some family friends, but she wouldn't end up leaving for 26 years. And the reason she went to stay there in the first place is because she was having so many issues at home with her parents. She went expecting to get a break from her dysfunctional family. Little did she know she would be in hell for the next 26 years of her life. You're probably wondering, where was this girl's parents? Like, why weren't they looking for her? Like I said, the family was very dysfunctional. And they just assumed their 16-year-old vulnerable daughter just didn't want to come home anymore, and she chose to move on. While there's not much that we know about this girl, it's said that she has learning difficulties and that she was very vulnerable, but they don't actually specify what that is. She was described to be childlike, but that could also be due to the 26 years of what she endured. So once Mandy had this young girl at her house, she physically locked her inside the house and she wasn't allowed to leave. She was trapped in a room that police literally described as a prison cell. Now, you might be asking, where was child services? Was nobody checking in on this girl? Like I said, her family certainly wasn't, and apparently child services stopped checking in on that family in the 90s. So her disappearance was just unknown to anyone. This girl was then forced to basically be a house slave for Mandy and her 10 children. Now, the word house slave, I mean it literally. Unpaid work every single day for 26 years. This young child was raising Mandy's kids and bathing them, all of that. She wasn't allowed to bathe though. She was forced to get on her hands and knees and scrub the entire house every day. And so she developed calluses on both her knees and her hands from doing that every single day. And if it wasn't perfect, she would get seriously harmed by Mandy. Like I mentioned earlier, this young girl was not allowed to bathe. Mandy would make her clean the whole house, but she herself, the girl, was not allowed to use the bathroom and wash herself. And one of the first things that she said to police officers when they found her was, "I haven't washed for years." Like, that is so awful. She was in charge of caring for Mandy's million children, but those children as well were unfortunately very neglected. And none of them were going to school, so no one really could see what was happening. These 10 kids, I'm gonna actually say 11 because that girl was living there too, they weren't getting educated. They had rotting teeth, yet that one 16-year-old girl was blamed for it all. Obviously, she was older throughout this. It was 26 years of captivity. I'm saying 16 to really show you guys, like, her life ended at that point. Well, it didn't end, it paused at 16 because this random woman took advantage of her vulnerability when she was just seeking comfort and someone to help her. She was regularly being beat by Mandy with broomsticks, whatever she could find. So let's talk about how this was all discovered. The way they found out was kind of a perfect storm. The girl managed to get her hands on a mobile phone. Mandy had smashed her old one, but she got a new one, and she managed to contact someone. I'm not 100% sure who this actual contact was, but that person, alongside one of Mandy's kids, ended up tipping off the police. The reason she finally got the courage to ask for help is because she was getting very sick, and for the first time in her life, the thought of dying in that house was scarier than the thought of Mandy herself and the repercussions of maybe getting caught asking for help. At 10:40 on the 15th of March, 2021, the police finally showed up at the front door. And immediately upon entering, they were hit with the smell of rot, mold, damp, unwashed bodies, just all of the above. The walls were peeling. The place was in appalling condition. It was unimaginable to them that children were living there. Now, Mandy was very controlling, hence how she was able to get away with this for so long. And she immediately tried to convince the police not to talk to the victim. She was trying to convince them that everything was normal and fine, but obviously they were there for a reason and it wasn't all normal and fine. So they finally found the girl, who was now a 40-year-old woman. They described her as being like a shadow. Her hair was apparently like hacked off and shaved. She was emaciated. She obviously hadn't washed in a very long time, and she was terrified. Understandably so. But she apparently spoke up and told the police, "I'm not safe here. She hits me regularly." And they finally took her away. She finally got to leave the house for the first time in 26 years. She unfortunately had nearly no teeth left because of all of the punishments that Mandy gave her, and she had a lot of trauma, not only visible but mental. Mandy was, of course, arrested, and she's facing a good amount of time in jail. We don't know how much yet, but she's being sentenced on the 12th of March, I think. She's got a whole lot of charges coming her way, so I hope she never sees the light of day again, to be honest. In terms of the girl who still remains anonymous, and I'm glad they've given her that, she's said to be with a new foster family who I pray are treating her with so much love. And she's going to college, and hopefully she's safe and she's healing. And she's able to resume the life that got paused when she was only 16 years old in 1995. That's more time than some of you watching have even been alive. More time than I've been alive. That is everything I could find so far on this case. I pray that the girl is well and, like I said, safe. And I hope you all are well and safe too. I hope this didn't ruin your evening. or morning or whenever you're watching this. Let me know when you're watching this or if you're even still here. But yeah, it's been great talking to you guys. I'm gonna head. Tell me what case you want to see next. And yeah, lots of love. Bye!
You've probably seen this guy. If you don't recognize this picture, you probably recognize this picture. He is, as we speak, getting ready to go to trial. Let's talk about why. Daniel Larson was born in 1998 into a really bad and sad home. He was severely neglected as a child and as a result was taken away from his parents and put into the care of his grandmother. There's a video online of when Daniel was only 14 years old and attending Tennyson Center for Children, which has been described to be a treatment center for emotionally and crisis-affected children. He started going to that treatment center after he moved to Denver, Colorado to live with his grandmother. Around this time as well, he was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and bipolar disorder, and because of that, he needed a little bit of extra help figuring out how to navigate through life. His grandma was more than willing to be the person that Daniel needed, but unfortunately, she lost her battle to cancer in 2019. At that treatment center, which was not his first, he showed up really angry and unsure of the world and of himself, but after a year and a half of living there and then moving in with his grandmother, there was a lot of improvement in Daniel. But when he lost her, I can imagine that felt like he was taking 10 steps backward. At that Tennyson Center, Daniel met a man called Bob Proctor, who he really bonded with. Bob also got to know Daniel's grandmother, so after he heard about her passing, he kind of stepped up to be that support system for Daniel because he knew that he would need it. And even though Daniel knew that there was something different about him, he found a passion in singing and acting, and he really wanted to give it a real shot. That treatment center and the time that he spent with his grandmother gave him the confidence that he needed to believe in himself. He starts making music, and then he starts posting on social media, on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, etc., and his videos started getting a lot of traction, a lot of attention, and his following started to grow a lot. He also started posting daily vlogs, doing lives, posting videos of him just talking in addition to singing and doing music. And because of his quirky, unique personality, people on the internet really started to hype him up and encourage him. His following grew, his confidence grew, and all of a sudden he started talking about how he was finding a lot of success in the music industry. And he said that he started hearing a lot from different label companies that wanted to sign him. And because he had a pretty big following, by the way, he made new TikTok accounts all the time. There were a ton of them. A lot of them don't exist anymore, but he would get banned and then he would just make a different account. But anyway, point being, he started acting like he was famous. He loved it. He felt like it. Whether his comment section was filled with people who were actually his fans, who actually wanted the best for him, or people who only had bad intentions, is kind of up for you to decide. But point being, he was getting a lot of attention, and Daniel started making TikToks talking about the most random things. For example, he announced that he was going to be running for president, promising things that he would do. He would often talk about controversial topics, interesting online claims, and he would also record himself and post videos online of him having odd interactions in public and talking to people in public that would raise a lot of concern from his followers that were watching. And as you can imagine, people on the internet saw this as an open invitation basically to come in and criticize him without holding back. So while you did have those people who were supporting him, looking out for him, there were just as many people, if not more, with clear bad intentions. Daniel also very, very often talked about this unhealthy obsession that he had with Grace VanderWaal, an American singer-songwriter who won America's Got Talent. However, this was one of the first things that sent major alarm bells to people, given the things that he would say about Grace at times, more oftentimes than not towards the end, were so graphic in nature. And when he started talking about Grace in that way, she was only 16 years old. In one of his videos, Daniel claimed that him and Grace were in a relationship. I think in one, he said that they were getting married and that she was having his babies. I think he also said at one point, although that obviously was not the case. But there is a chance that Daniel could have been convinced that what he was saying was true, because when he's talking about it, if you listen to him, he seems so sure of what he's saying, even if the things that he was saying could not be any further away from the truth. And when people started to notice how quick Daniel was to believe anything that he was told, they started taking advantage of that for their own entertainment, because he would think that everything that he read was true and he would take any and every comment as his reality. So very constantly, people would make fake accounts of either Grace VanderWaal or fake record label companies or fake management companies. They would reach out to Daniel pretending to be real, only to feed into what already felt like such an unstable state of mind, which only led to those people on the internet to push it one step further. Daniel Larson's popularity very quickly became negative, but a big turning point of it was in November of 2020 when Daniel's Pinterest account and search history was leaked. And on there were a lot of disturbing images of girls who were not of legal age, a lot of pictures under a pin titled Girl Crushes, and another pin that had the map of the age of consent in different states. When people also looked at his liked and reposted videos on TikTok, they noticed that it was a lot of videos and pictures of children disturbing in nature and uncomfortable to any normal person. Shortly after that, Daniel would post a video addressing this, saying that it was his Pinterest account, that the allegations online in regards to himself and children were very true, and saying that he had an attraction to young kids. He was also apologizing for it. Later on though, however, he would take everything back and he would say that his social media accounts were hacked and that the weird behavior was not him. Some people believed him, of course, a lot of others did not. Throughout this time, by the way, it's believed that Daniel was living in group homes, still in contact with Bob Proctor, who he referred to be his mentor, but nothing in his life was stable. Keep in mind that he was struggling with autism, ADHD, and bipolar disorder. He is also believed, in the opinion of some doctors who treated him, that he possibly also struggled with schizophrenia because of several occasions where he reportedly had really bad delusions, causing him to have delusional ideas of his own, but also making him more vulnerable to believe anything that anyone said to him, no matter how crazy things sounded. Also, I'm obviously not saying anything negative about people who struggle with similar things. I'm just saying that in Daniel's case, without the proper medication and treatment and care, on top of already being a target for people of the internet, that all combined, it did not help Daniel's mental health, which in result only made his behavior and his actions worse. In videos, Daniel started to behave very erratically. He would have breakdowns where he was either really angry or he was crying. He would damage walls by kicking and banging his head against them. He would talk about children and girls in ways that are not at all acceptable in any way, shape, or form. He also once showed himself live wearing nothing on his bottom half, like quite literally nothing. That got his account banned, but he created a new TikTok account the same day. He would also talk about any and every controversial topic that you can think of, saying things that did not really make sense, all while still being in this fake relationship in his head with Grace Vanderwall. He would believe messages of people that would message him saying that they were management companies and or record label companies. Fake numbers of people pretending to be children would also text Daniel, trying to see if he would fall for it and say incriminating things under the perception that they were children, and he would every single time. He would talk about fighting people, lighting fireworks inside of buildings, and his plans to severely damage and destroy public property with people inside just to see what would happen. It was not good. And then around 2021, Daniel Larson was left homeless, only making things go downhill even faster. He became known for dining and dashing. He would go to restaurants such as Cheesecake Factory and order multiple dishes, and then he would get on live on social media and ask his followers to send him money in order to pay for his meals. When he was sent money, he would pay, but when he wasn't, he couldn't afford to, so he would just leave. And that left him to be banned of so many restaurants. Also, because he had nowhere to live, he also started sleeping in public bathrooms like Planet Fitness bathrooms and casino bathrooms. In one video, he says that he was banned by over 30 Planet Fitnesses for sleeping in their bathrooms. He was also banned from a ton of casinos, and he was just constantly getting kicked out of places. Then he would record himself getting kicked out, yelling at people yelling at him. He would also make videos declaring war, saying that he was going to start a war and talking about all the things that he was planning on doing to do so. There was really not a single thing in Daniel's life that was stable, and that showed. And it is not surprising to know that a lot of people saw Daniel as someone who was quite literally losing his mind in front of all the people on social media to watch. It also comes to no one's surprise that Daniel's behavior led to him getting in trouble with law enforcement on a number of times. He was arrested for various things, including attempt to unlawfully damage and destroy a building and other real and personal property, such as university campuses, courthouses, nonprofit centers, the White House, FBI headquarters, evasion of justice after not showing up to court, offenses of crimes of violence. And then in 2024, he was charged with 7 federal charges. Those were all in relations to the things that he was claiming he was going to do to bring harm to others. And the path that he was going down, also specifically his search history on the internet, showed that he did have intentions to do these things. Whether or not he would or wouldn't have, we will not know, thankfully. So he was arrested and he was ordered to see a doctor for his mental health. The doctor confirming many things that dated back to Daniel's childhood. For example, histories of head injuries and trauma. A report states that his mother reported that Daniel had, quote, non-accidental head injury around the age of 3 weeks and a seizure around 5 months, end quote. Also states that his mother hit him with a hammer at 8 years old. that Daniel demonstrated executive dysfunction concerns at the age of 12 and 13, and that in the past he had been hospitalized after he hit his head and broke multiple holes in the walls after he felt overwhelmed. All the things that Daniel struggled with as a child carried on into his adulthood. And the doctor also stated that Daniel struggled with delusional beliefs that were only made worse and encouraged by the people on the internet who he believed were his fans. Because of that, Daniel was not fit to stand trial, and he was instead advised to continue taking antipsychotic medication and treatment at a medical center. The competency question on whether or not he was able to stand trial has been dragging on for almost 2 years. He most recently had court hearings on January 22nd and February 3rd of 2026 to determine this. And after months of psychiatric evaluations and testimonies from multiple psychiatrists, a judge has very recently ruled that Daniel Larson is competent to proceed in his federal criminal case. A trial date has been set for April 20th of 2026. I think that every single aspect of this case is so sad. I think the things that he did and said are really disturbing and really scary. But I also think that he needs so much help that he did not get. I'm going to be looking out for this trial, so yeah. But that's it for me today. Also, my eyes, I feel like, have been so red the last few videos. I have the world's most sensitive eyes, and they get red if I don't blink often enough. So I'm not crying, even though it looks like it. My eyes are just really sensitive. Anyway, hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.